Hey everyone, it's Jamie Batts, your instructor for AMP2. We're going to wrap up our lecture on respiratory physiology. We were just talking about some clinical terms and some abnormalities that may occur with the respiratory system. Let's talk about control of the respiratory system, some mechanisms in there. First, you have these rhythmicity centers that are present in the medulla oblongata. These are basically like pacemaker cells that are in there to just set the rate and depth of breathing. They establish this pace of respiration, and they literally adjust these pacemaker cells. They are coordinating our respiratory muscles along with the oxygen levels that are present in our body. They work in conjunction with another complex called the pre-Botzinger complex, which is basically a little area that's essential to all of our breathings. It's a very poorly understood mechanism. In fact, I've been teaching A&P for 6 years now, as of the date I made this video, and they still don't really know much about it. So the other respiratory rhythmicity centers include the dorsal respiratory group, or DRG. This is I'm trying to look back at my notes because I had some drawings for you. It's a section of your medulla oblongata. It's basically monitoring the input that's coming from chemoreceptors and baroreceptors. The chemoreceptors will detect oxygen, carbon dioxide, and pH levels in the blood as well as the CSF. And the baroreceptors are monitoring the stretch receptors in the lungs. So it's taking all that information into account. It's mainly concerned with inspiration. The inspiratory center is located in this DRG. So this is controlling like the diaphragm and our external intercostals. We also have the VRG. The VRG is mainly in control of our expiration, and it's also in control of our forced breathing. So when you're asked to take a deep breath, or when you're taking a deep breath voluntarily, this is your VRG taking over. So the two respiratory centers of our medulla oblongata, again, I would make a graphic organizer of this. Respiratory centers of medulla oblongata. 1 DRG, 1 VRG, and then have the uses of each. The DRG is acting every breathing cycle. This is our quiet breathing. This is our external intercostals and our diaphragm over and over and over again. Quiet breathing involving our inspiratory center. Our ventral respiratory group, or VRG, this is during our forced breathing and exhalation. It's activating those accessory muscles. So we also have our apneustic and our pneumotaxic centers. These are in the pons. So these are adjusting the output of the respiratory rhythmicity centers. These can adjust the pace. If you think about the brainstem, the medulla oblongata is at the bottom and the pons is right on top. So the medulla oblongata, this is just doing general stuff, pacing it over and over again. It's like a rocking chair, just going and going. However, the pons, which is above, means higher level than our medulla oblongata, can actually adjust that pace. So anything above different centers of the brain, and we know this, right, can control what's going on below it. So the apneustic and the pneumotaxic centers are going to adjust the rates of the DRG and the VRG. The apneustic centers are going to promote inhalation by stimulating that DRG. The degree of stimulation is going to be based on sensory information that's coming in from the vagus nerve about how our lungs are inflating. The pneumotaxic centers are going to inhibit the apneustic centers. This is going to promote exhalation. So it's going to increase, an increase in pneumotaxic output is going to shorten the inhalation duration, meaning you have a faster inspiration rate or faster respiration rate. A decrease in output is going to slow the pace, but it's also going to increase the depth of our respiration. So the apneustic centers can be more active during inhalation. So basically the way this works, I thought I had a graphic organizer. Nope. Basically you have an increase in, let me go, stop share, sorry. So if just general regulation of breathing stuff, again, I would make a graphic organizer of this. At the top, you have, it's going to be more like a flow chart. right? So get your paper ready, a flow chart. You have an increase in DRG, right? If your DRG is being stimulated or increased, that's going to, allow for that inhalation to occur. Then you have an increase in your VRG. This is your exhalation. This is going to activate your accessory muscles. Overall, you're going to have inhalation occurring. Then your expiratory center is stimulated, and then you have exhalation occurring. So this is that cycle that's happening over and over and over again. Leading into our DRG are the apneustic and pneumotaxic centers. Those are going to set the pace and regulate the DRG based upon information from the vagus nerve. So if our vagus nerve is saying, well, our lungs are inflating more, then maybe if our lungs are trying to expand more, maybe they need to increase that respiration rate. Maybe our oxygen demands are increasing, right? So the apneustic is important in stimulating that DRG, and the pneumotaxic is basically there to inhibit that apneustic center. So it's turning the apneustic center off to allow for that exhalation to occur. So it's a cycle that's going to occur over and over again as we adjust our respiration rates according to, whatever we have going on. Like when I finish this video, probably have to go upstairs because I'm in my basement office right now. So just walking up the stairs, my breathing rate is going to increase even just slightly. So that's going to all be regulated by the apneustic center. So the pneumotaxic centers, as I said, inhibiting the apneustic center, passive and active exhalation, and pretty much covered that already. So there are other higher centers that can regulate respiratory mechanisms. The hypothalamus, the limbic system, the cerebral cortex, all altering the pneumotaxic centers. Normal breathing can occur without any of that higher input, as we saw just with the medulla oblongata, just that DRG beating over and over again with those pacemaker cells. But our hypothalamus obviously involved with our endocrine system, eating, sleeping. Limbic system is our emotions, right? This is your surprise, right? Things like that. Cerebral cortex, any of the upper level things, meaning you can physically say, I'm going to take a deep breath right now, and you can be aware of it, right? That's what your cerebral cortex is doing. So this is just a nice graph showing you all of this interrelatedness of all of these structures that I tried to describe for you within our medulla oblongata, the inspiratory and expiratory centers of the DRG and VRG, apneustic pneumotaxic centers of our pons, all being regulated by higher centers within our cerebral cortex, limbic system, and hypothalamus. Even if our even if our higher levels of our nervous system are not aware or activated, the DRG and VRG will still do their job. So this is showing during quiet breathing, and then the DRG becomes inactive. This is that chart that I was asking you to draw out. And then everything relaxes and becomes passive. During forced breathing, you have your VRG turned on to activate those accessory muscles. So some reflexes. You have chemoreceptors that are helping to monitor our blood concentrations of oxygen and carbon dioxide pH. Baroreceptors that are within the aortic and carotid sinuses, sensitive to changes in pressure, which can help alter the activities of our respiratory centers. Stretch receptors also activated. They're going to be responsible for the inflation and deflation reflexes, and any irritating physical or chemical stimuli can cause changes in respiration as well, coughing, sneezing, things like that. You can pause the video here, go back and review this section. Well, let's talk about some of these chemoreceptor reflexes. So under normal conditions, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is the most important factor. And this is because of what I said before. Partial pressure of carbon dioxide is strongly linked to our pH. If the pH in our body goes off, then everything's going to start breaking down, not working properly. So the respiratory centers are going to respond differently. A rise of only 10% of partial pressure of carbon dioxide is going to double the respiration rate. Partial pressure of oxygen drops below 60 millimeters before triggering any respiratory center. So again, it's much more sensitive to carbon dioxide than oxygen. That's also because our oxygen is only 75%, in the venous system, we still have 75% saturation even after, oxygen delivery at the periphery. So our body's a lot less sensitive to oxygen concentrations than to carbon dioxide concentrations. In fact, when you hold your breath, if you're suffocating yourself, you're actually not going to die from the oxygen starvation. In most cases, you'll be dying from the carbon dioxide poisoning that's going on in your body as your body's continuing to produce carbon dioxide and not getting rid of it. Hypercapnia is the increased arterial partial pressure of carbon dioxide. It's most commonly caused during hypoventilation, when you're not breathing fast enough. An increase in partial pressure of carbon dioxide is going to stimulate those chemoreceptors, increasing your respiration rate. Hypocapnia is most commonly caused by hyperventilation, when you're breathing too fast. This is in response to low carbon dioxide levels, so your body's going to decrease respiration rate. Snorkelers will sometimes hyperventilate to increase their dive time, right? And they take a deep breath. It's potentially dangerous because the levels of oxygen can drop, causing you to black out or even faint, which is called a shallow water blackout. So a fairly common thing, especially if you are a snorkeler, if you've ever done any group snorkels. I like to call myself a professional snorkeler, but I'm really not. I just like to look at fish. So here you see the whole sequence chart in action. I suggest recreating this yourself on your own sheet of paper so that you understand the flow. It's not enough just to look at this diagram and trace it with your finger. You really need to draw this out. So let's start. You have a normal partial pressure of carbon dioxide, but something happens, hypercapnia. You have this increased arterial partial pressure of carbon dioxide, knocking your homeostasis off balance. This is going to stimulate your arterial chemoreceptors, causing an increase of partial pressure of your CSF and decrease in the pH. Uh-oh, your pH is getting too low. So you're going to stimulate your respiratory muscles. You're going to stimulate your CSF chemoreceptors in your medulla oblongata. What are they going to do? They're going to increase your respiration rate. That's going to help get that carbon dioxide out of your body, get your partial pressure back to normal. You could also have hypocapnia, not enough carbon dioxide. So you have a decreased partial pressure of carbon dioxide. This is going to inhibit your chemoreceptors. Decreasing your partial pressure of carbon dioxide within the CSF is going to inhibit your respiratory muscles, decreasing the CSF chemoreceptors, and decreasing the respiration rate overall, decreasing the amount of CO2 that's being exhaled and getting your CO2 back to normal. You also have baroreceptor reflexes. The baroreceptor reflexes are going to respond to changes in arterial blood pressure. They're monitored at the carotid and aortic sinuses, and they're going to stimulate changes in the respiratory minute volume. A drop in arterial pressure is going to stimulate the respiratory centers, causing an increase in respiratory minute volume, and an increase in arterial blood pressure is going to inhibit the respiratory centers to decrease the respiratory minute volume. So it's an inverse relationship between arterial blood pressure and respiratory minute volume. As our arterial blood pressure goes up, our respiratory minute volume goes down. Our respiration rate goes down. You also have inflation and deflation reflexes. These are activated by stretch receptors in our lungs during forced breathing. So sensory information can be distributed to the apneustic centers and the VRG about these reflexes. The inflation reflex is there for your protection. It's going to prevent the overexpansion of your lungs. You also have a deflation reflex. This is going to inhibit your expiratory centers and stimulate your inspiratory centers when your lungs are deflating. So this is that, right? This is how you bounce back up to inhaling after you have exhaled. So stretch receptors are located on the smooth muscles around the bronchioles. They're stimulated by the expansion, and they're inhibited by their respiratory rhythmicity centers, and inhalation is going to stop after they expand enough. And then the expiratory centers of the VRG are then stimulated when we push that air out, when forced exhalation begins. There are other protective reflexes like sneezing and coughing. Sneezing is triggered by an irritation of your nasal cavity wall. Coughing is triggered by irritation of the trachea, larynx, bronchi, anything further down. They both involve something called apnea. Apnea is any period where you're not breathing, followed by a forceful exhalation. That forceful exhalation is going to, in theory, clear all of the irritants out of the passageway. Look at all those water droplets in there. Ooh, right? Reminds me of that movie, Outbreak, right? They're on the plane and that kid eats the cookie and then they're in the movie theater and someone sneezes. Yeah, it's an old movie. It's an oldie but goodie. It's actually the movie that got me into science, believe it or not. Game changer. Good old Dustin Hoffman. All right, you can pause the video here, go back and review this section. We are almost done with this lecture, so I'm going to keep moving and shaking through it, talking about some clinical issues with respiratory issues involving our aging and our respiratory function. Just like everything, it's going to get a little slower, a little bit harder to function, decrease in productivity, basically. All aspects are going to decrease with age. The elastic tissue is going to deteriorate. Therefore, our vital capacity is going to decrease. Arthritis in the ribs is going to reduce compliance. Some degree of emphysema typically occurs just from all of the environmental irritants that accumulate in our lungs over time, regardless of whether you are a smoker. Respiratory function is going to decline more significantly in a smoker, especially one that has smoked for several years. Check this out. If you are a smoker, you might want to quit now. Just check out the changes that occur in the lungs. So someone who never smoked, this is the percentage of respiratory performance, and have a very high, that this blue line is the non-smoker, they have a very high level of respiratory function. Someone who is a smoker has respiratory disabilities by about age 70 or so. But if they stop smoking at age 65, that increases. Look, if you stop smoking at 45, look how much better your lungs are over your lifetime. So it's never too late to quit. Let's talk about lung cancer, unfortunately. This is causing more deaths per year than any other type of cancer. It kills more people than colon, breast cancer, and prostate cancer combined. And over 50% of lung cancer patients are going to die within a year of prognosis. This is mostly because of the difficult detection of it. You might just think you have a cold or a cough over an extended period of time, and it turned out to be cancer. So if you do have some lung irritations, get it checked out. It's also 12.6% of all new cancer cases in the United States, and 80 to 90% of lung cancer is the direct result of smoking. So if you didn't hear my little anti-smoking pitch before, I know some people just like it. I get it. But just like I like coffee, right? I probably shouldn't drink so much coffee. But I also like to run, which is good for you. So check out the incidence of lung cancer per 100,000 people, much more common in males than in females. And I don't know, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that maybe that's because smoking is typically a male thing. I don't know. That's probably not true. I don't know the statistics there, but it's interesting to see most of them going down, though over the years females have gone up. I don't know why that is. Overall effects of smoking, obviously there's several carcinogens in cigarette smoke. Mucus and cilia are going to be damaged because they're there to help clean the air, but as you're constantly breathing in that smoke, they're going to be damaged. Irritants are going to cause something called dysplasia, which is going to damage your cells. The cilia is paralyzed, causes change, a local buildup of mucus. There's also metaplasia, which is reversible. This is when the tissue is actually changing structure. The epithelium converts to a stratified epithelium instead of the pseudo-stratified ciliated columnar that it's supposed to be. And it does that basically as a defensive mechanism to help protect the underlying tissue layers. The neoplasia is neoplasia and anaplasia. These are cancer terms. The neoplasia is the growth of abnormal cells that forms a tumor called a neoplasm, and then the anaplasia is when those cells become malignant and metastasize to other parts of the body. So this is just showing you the progression chemicals and carcinogens in the smoke are going to cause the dysplasia, which creates those abnormal cells. And then the dysplasia can grow into a metaplasia, and then the metaplasia can be irreversible through a neoplasia or anaplasia, which is where it metastasizes. So this is our last slide of this respiratory physiology lecture. There are 3 questions here for you to review regarding age-related changes and smoking changes to our respiratory system. Hopefully I didn't talk too fast. If I did, you can go back and review. That's one of the benefits of having these lectures recorded. Please let me know if you have any questions. Have an awesome day.